All right. Good morning, Woodlawn Baptist Church. Welcome to our morning devotional. We are so glad as you join in. Take a moment to say hello to us in the comments section. Take a little time to say what's up, and we're glad to see you. I want to apologize. The last couple of days haven't been able to hop on. It's been a crazy early part of the week. Had some early meetings, and many of them that lasted throughout the day, and so I haven't been able to hop on and work on our morning devotional. But we are back today, back in action. So we'll be doing today and tomorrow for this week, and so I want you to join us and be a part. Our question of the day is this: what is something generous or kind that someone has done for you that really encouraged you? Just like a one sentence, maybe they sent you a note, maybe they took you out to eat, maybe they provided something for you when you were sick, went and bought you some medicine or something like that. Good morning, Miss Eileen. Good to see you this morning. Um, so, what is something that someone has done for you that was kind or that was generous that really encouraged you along the way? All right. So comment with us there in the comment section here today, and it's good to see everyone. Good saying hello there today. Um, and so there has been so many times that folks have done things like that, encouraging to me. They're really too many to count. One of the ones that I would say recently, or within the last several months, obviously many of you have welcomed me and my family here, and that's been an encouragement to me. But probably about a year ago, well, yeah, about a year ago now, we were down to one car, and Heather and I were both needing to kind of get places and that type of deal. And we had been sharing the one car, and it was, as many of you know, that gets old real quick. And well, good morning, Mom. Good to see you there. Good morning, Sarah. Good to see you. So we've been sharing a car, and one day we just get a knock on the door from a family from our church, and we're like, "Hey, what's up? What are you doing here?" Kind of a thing. It was like 8:30 in the morning, something like that. And they said, "You know what? We've been praying about it, and we're just two people, but we have a third car that's just been hanging around for a long time. It's got high miles on it, this type of thing. Um, but we just wanted to bless you with it because we saw that you had a need, and we just felt like that's something that we could do to help out." And I tell you what, I mean, between the misty eyes and the hugs and everything else that took place, there is a sense there of when someone sees you where you are and someone just says, "Hey, I love you and I just want to help." Man, it changes. It just makes your heart feel full, and it just really just man just transforms kind of what's going on in your heart. And at that time, I was just kind of had been kind of wore out, and just really feeling stressed. And boy, what a great just a great token of love in that process. And so what about you? What are some things that folks have done? Maybe they didn't give you a car. I mean, that's pretty awesome thing. Well, what are even some little things that someone has done that just really encouraged you in your life? Good morning, Mr. Hollis. Good to see you this morning, my brother. Um, and then in the process, how did it make you feel when someone encouraged you in some way? When someone did something nice for you, what did it make you feel like in your heart? Today, I want to talk a little bit about being a helper, being generous and kind to others, and the difference that makes in their lives. We unfortunately live in a world that is rapidly becoming more and more self-centered. Even at times our giving to good causes, you can see, somebody posts, "Oh, I gave to this," or "Oh, I gave to that." Even sometimes our motives behind that are a little self-serving, of I want people to see that I'm a generous person. I kind of want to put forth this idea that I'm a generous person, so I'm going to give something. Sometimes even our motives are off in our giving, or we have some personal stake in our giving, that type of thing. Um, but how often, the question is, how often are we genuinely just concerned about others? We care about others, and we want to just let them know that in some way and do something for them along the way. How often do we take personal responsibility and make personal sacrifices so that others are strengthened and blessed and supported and lifted up along the way? And and so that's kind of the question. That's what we want to talk about today. Today, the passage I want to share is less a word from Paul in the book of Philippians and more of an observation about his particular situation. Paul is working hard for the gospel and he ends up in prison and he has needs. This isn't an American prison where you get 3 meals a day and air conditioned and you get a pad to sleep on and all this kind of good stuff. That's not how prisons were back in the day. Think more dungeon-like scenario, and that's probably a little closer to reality. And Paul couldn't leave, even in the moments that he would have been under house arrest. He couldn't leave and go places and get things for himself and things of that nature. And so Paul was at a place where he needed some help. I mean, he needed people to help him. This is a guy who'd been serving the Lord, doing mission work, trying to, and he gets arrested along the way and gets put in prison. And so he needed support. And this, Paul couldn't this isn't today where Paul could just pick up the phone and say, hey, can you drop by or can you Venmo me some money or something like that? He can't do that. He had to write a letter. It probably would have taken weeks to get where it was going. And then, correspondence back would have been weeks, and so the process would have been slow. So imagine this isolation, the very real isolation that would have been a part of that. And in that context, think about where Paul's at. The church of Philippi, upon finding out about Paul's situation, sends supplies and sends people to go and help him and to go and strengthen him. And this was his response in Philippians 4:10. Check this out. He said, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. Now, it says here that he rejoiced greatly. The word for rejoice is the word chairo, and it means to delight in God's grace. Upon receiving the support, Paul stopped to thank the Lord for his provision and just to worship him and to honor him. Paul recognized that the Lord had put within the hearts of those people to give and that he was the beneficiary of it. Oh man, what a blessing! I bet Paul was having a little worship service right there in the prison cell, because God's grace had been shown on him through people that loved him and cared about him or were concerned about him and supported what he was doing. Now, in this passage, in the English, it almost kind of sounds like Paul's being a little sarcastic or a little passive aggressive. He says, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. So, we tend to focus on the at last as if Paul's kind of being that way. But the word here for concern is the word phroneo, and it means to have an inward feeling in the heart that produces an outward action. And we really don't have a good English equivalent. You have to kind of explain that one. And so Paul is rejoicing because the tangible outworking, they had a concern in their heart, but now at last the outward workings of that phroneo has come to pass, and he's able to see the benefit of that on display in his life. And so Paul even clarifies that in the next verse that they had been concerned, but they had no way of showing it. Either they didn't know about his needs yet, or they didn't have the means to help yet, or they weren't yet allowed to help by the authorities yet. And so either way, they had been concerned all along, were preparing to help all along, and that support helped Paul in his mission work. It gave him the supplies that he needed, but above all, it helped him keep his spiritual morale when he was in a place of isolation, in a place of loneliness. That is what support and that is what helping others can do. We talk a lot about Paul, and rightfully so. He was a brilliant writer, preacher, church planner, and God used him in incredible ways. But today I want to talk about the helpers, because I think that's an important part of this. I wonder how far Paul would have gotten without supporters, without encouragers along the way. You know, those are the real world changers. Those are the ones who really do the hard work. I hear people talk all the time about the big names that are out there making a big difference, and that's great. We need that. But the kingdom of God endures and grows and is supported by simple servants who care, who are concerned, and who take action on that concern. It's the grandmother who's been on her knees for 20 years for her grandchild to come to know Jesus. It's the man who cuts the grass for his neighbor who's elderly, because the elderly man can't get out and do it very well. It's a lady who makes soup for someone who's sick. It's the couple who's built a relationship with their neighbors and they share Christ with them over dinner. It's the card writers, the phone callers, the hard workers. The kingdom of God needs people like Paul, no doubt. Needs leaders, needs visionaries, needs church planners, missionaries, all that kind of good stuff. But it's going nowhere without those who will love and serve and give and help and sacrifice and support along the way. And when that support comes, there is great rejoicing, just as there was with Paul. So, the question, I guess, or the challenge that I want to give to us today, first of all, I want to say, if you're one of those folks that you feel like, you know, in serving your church or in serving the Lord, that maybe you just feel like your job's not quite as glamorous as maybe some other ones, can I just share with you and encourage you today from a pastor standpoint, is that there's no way I could be a pastor without the hundreds of people who literally hold my arms up on a weekly basis, who pray for me, who send little. I just had a little letter of encouragement left on my chair yesterday, and just overwhelmed with the blessing of that. Like, me as a pastor, I can't do my job without others who are there to support and help along the way. And so, if you feel like maybe your job's not all that glamorous, can I say that what you're doing matters, and what you're doing makes an impact for the kingdom of God? But I also say that as a challenge to us, because oftentimes, as we started this devotional with, oftentimes we do get a little self-focused and self-driven. And I think there's times that we need to take a step back and say, you know what? How can I support others in God's kingdom work? How can I be the hands and the feet? How can I take the gospel message and actually live it out so that people see Jesus through my actions and through what I'm doing? And the gospel needs skin, I think, is the way that someone once